Thank you, Marissa. Hi, everybody. I'd like to get a sense of who's here. Um, who's instrumental music? Just raise your hand. If you want to keep yourself on video, it's fine with me. Uh, and then general, vocal, or I should just say, Mary, what are you? You can feel free to unmute yourselves, everybody, unless there's noise in your background. Um, I don't think it'll interfere too much because with a small group like this. But I just wanted to get a sense. Who's general and vocal, like choral? Yeah, you do a little both, Paul. And then what am I missing? Instrumental, vocal, general. Who's early childhood? Anybody?
Okay.
Pre-K. That counts, certainly counts. They're over the hill for me. No, but I've worked with all ages up through college, of course. I'm actually doing a professional development with people, music teachers all around the world. It's really a great conversation. We can talk more about that as we get into our toward the end of next week's session. Um, are you planning on being at both this week and next week? Maybe we'll see how good I am. We'll see if I'm worthy. Um, and let's see. What about elementary? Who's elementary and middle school, high school? So, Paul,
And you're leaving out one.
what am I leaving out?
Retired.
Oh, I was like, I didn't think it's collegiate. I guess there could be collegiate people here. Retired. Very good. Well, maybe in 5 years from now, I'll join your ranks. You can give me give me everything I need to know when I get there. What I need to know is retired. But anyway, sorry. Um, I'm looking forward to sharing what I have tonight. Let me just share my screen, and please feel free to jump in and interrupt if there's something you have. It's a small enough group. You can certainly raise your hand and type in questions like that, but let's keep it informal. I think it'll be best with such a small group. So here's a keynote that I started. Well, so this is just to keep track of me. You'll note my email, but I'll have that at the end. So, guiding questions for how we think through these, think through the evening. You know, generally, what is your purpose in being here? Just think for a second. What do you really want to get out of being here? And then if we're reevaluating our content in a curriculum, what are those most important components you consider? And then what makes the most difference in advancing a child's musical development? Does anybody want to share about any of those three? No? Go ahead, Deborah.
We just, well, I came on, I saw your name, Eric, and I said, oh my gosh, it's the blasphemy.
Oh my gosh!
And I said, I have to come and say hello.
Oh my God, are you still playing clarinet? I didn't even look at your last name. Hi, Debbie. Oh my gosh.
That's good to see you, Eric.
Oh my gosh, it's been a long time. Yeah, it's nice to see you.
I'm
Thank you.
packing up my instruments from Zoom lessons after teaching all day. So,
Yeah, for sure. Well, your voice,
but I'm
I'll recognize
interested.
that in a heartbeat. Sorry, guys. This is a moment from 30 years ago. At any rate, more than that,
Yeah.
40 maybe. So anyway, these guiding questions, you want to consider them as we go through the talk tonight. the conversation. In the description of the class, it says taking stock of and reevaluating content choices. Well, what content choices are you making? Why have you made them? These aren't necessarily to be answered right now, although you certainly can. And where'd they come from? You know, did somebody tell you what content needs to be? And now that we're online, there's a lot of different kinds of choices we're having to make. What purpose do they fulfill? And then let's consider what's missing when we talk about content. And that's this most underrated concept in education, I feel, in my opinion, and in others too. Some good research to back this up. Does anybody want to take a stab? What makes content worthwhile or understood? Content's only as good as the context that it's in. So the context we're in generally, let's take a step back and just look at our situation. Who's got particular pain points, given that we're in, you know, the era of the coronavirus? Who's got particularly strong issues with not being able to? Well, first of all, that's another question I forgot to ask. Out of everybody, who's live? Who's teaching live people in the same? Wow. And how is that different for you?
Can't sing. You can't sing. There's a lot of movement. You're 6 feet apart, and keeping the kids engaged is very, very challenging because music's lively and they're behind a mask and they can't. Um, 4-year-olds, 4 and 5-year-olds are just, they're tired. And I have them in the morning.
Yeah.
It's we're singing through, we sing in their head, we sing through sign. So I started sign language 2 years ago, and we have a chapel program, and uh, we're doing everything through sign because they
Yeah.
can't sing in
Yeah.
class. It's very frustrating.
So
It's
your
hard.
content had to change some.
Content's changed, and we're doing a lot of rhythm and a lot of movement, and
Got it. Yeah. Is anybody having the same kinds of issues?
One of,
Paul?
one of the things that we're doing is we're having to take a community youth orchestra through a totally different environment where we cannot rehearse in person. So we went off two ways. We went synchronous with everything we can think of that we can help them learn their instruments. It's almost like giving lessons, and that's all one-sided. I mean, basically one mic's on at a time in a Zoom meeting. And then we also went asynchronous after we know what is needed to teach the music we're trying to teach. Um, we we branched out into things like music first. We're doing
Yeah.
practice first, sight reading factory, musician for music theory.
Mhm.
So, but I have an age group of grade 4 through adult, and some of them are learning their instruments, and there are no lessons. And so now, being the orchestra conductor, standing on the podium at my school, and we've been canceled for indefinitely for those kinds of rehearsals. Now I see them in Brady Bunch windows once a week, maybe an hour on
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yep.
I assign them. So my content, even though the repertoire may be the same, I'm looking at it and going, how are we going to teach shifting and positions? And we become the teachers of a totally different set of content, as you said, context, because of being basically not able to. Now, the thought was when we started, we were going to just take this as we'll get them as prepared as we can, and when they tell us we can come back, we'll have a concert in 3 weeks. And I've discovered that I'm probably branching out more as a general music teacher than I've ever done before. I mean, I was one many years ago,
Hmm.
and now I'm teaching music history, music appreciation, and setting them on their way to go off and look at these things. We do a Bach G minor fugue. Let's go learn about Bach's life. That sort of thing. As a conductor, I just stood up and conducted. It's different.
Yeah, for sure. So the new context we're in terms of how we can deliver a good music program, is been basically obliterated by the circumstance of the virus, and whether you're in person or over the computer, how you approach things has had to, has been turned on its head. And then, but none of that is something we have a choice about. There's no choice in it. We can, I when this initially went down in March, I was maybe clinically even depressed for a week or so. I couldn't get out of bed, and um, especially with early childhood, how are you going to do that online? Uh, and then a friend of mine suggested that her classes were going well, and to give it a shot. And I had done stuff online, but never tried to teach early childhood. But boy, within a couple 3 weeks, I was surprisingly pleased, not with me, but with them and their responses and their, being around, needing to be around other children, whether it's on the computer or not, and live engagement, and having parents be with them for a special music time, once a week or twice or whatever. And that was more important than, anything else. Debbie, were you going to say something else?
I um I also teach the fourth and fifth grade instrumental music, and so teaching beginning band has been all through Zoom. And the kids are going back tomorrow. The pre-K through second have been back the last 2 days.
Yeah,
So, oh, band starts tomorrow in the computer with the computer, and we'll analyze music and we
yeah,
learn about the computers, and we'll do smart music where and so I'll make sure all my kids are science smart music asynchronous, and the lessons will continue.
yeah,
My fifth grade classes are learning how to analyze music. We'll use Chrome, the Chrome Lab, and composers, and learn about the composers, and um, but
yeah,
a lot of, and then of course I'll use GarageBand, and
yeah,
but they're gonna create their own. It'll be different. It's a
yeah,
lot of technology. I'm a technology teacher right now.
yeah. Yeah, so the context and the way we provide it, and then the context for what we provide is partly what I want to start to tease out uh, in this conversation. Like, what's most critical, even if we were uninterrupted, what's most critical for you? And these questions I'm throwing out, in the previous slides and this one, what's giving you, you're about to say, or you're about to declare your curriculum, or giving yourself power to say, this is what's most important. Where is that coming from? Where's the heart and soul or the roots of your decision making coming from? So I'm asking you to kind of stir deeply into, is it going back to your music methods classes? Is it going back to what your administrators are telling you to do? 2 years ago, I was teaching third grade class, and some of them were doing fifth, sixth, much older work, and some of them weren't ready for the third grade material. And I had been there just a few months, and I got observed, and they basically sent me hiking because I wasn't sticking to the curriculum. I said, well, some of them aren't ready for the curriculum, and some of them are. So I was adapting my instruction to the individual needs in the classroom, but because it didn't fit their mold or their frame or whatever, they were trying to tell me how to teach, and they didn't understand. So basically, they gave me a choice to do what they were telling me to do or not, and so I chose not to, and I left. Um, right? So that's a different kind of context than what we're talking about here. Um, but like what I was committed to was the children's musical development, not teaching the third grade curriculum to third grade. So inside of my context, that school system's values didn't work for me. And I quit. And they said, oh, well, stay on 2 more weeks. Because we need you, to stay on until we have. And I like to think back and go, well, I have a PhD. Maybe they were just trying to cut the salary. And they robbed me of about 5 steps, too. They didn't accept paperwork from, or, like that. So, but that's a different context. But still, like, what are you considering at the heart and soul of your curriculum? What is the content? And well, I'm telling you, content isn't anything without context, and that's the next slide. Let's move on. Context. You can read it for yourselves. So it can be fully understood and assessed, right? Only inside of context, any content. It gives gives content more meaning. It's just as important as content. Without it, your message doesn't even come across. You lose meaning, right? And in this is something I copied, and I'll give you the link to it if you want it at the end. But you lose clicks, readers, and potential customers. Obviously, this is context and content. But the context of this article on context was about all of a sudden, in the 90s, the internet exploded, and everybody's producing all this content on the internet, and you're reading it, and you start to realize you're not understanding what people are really saying, or they're saying things out of context, which is happening an awful lot in today's political environment and otherwise. And it's because we don't have the context to understand it. And up until the 90s, we didn't have that problem because only the good content got published because it was such a high bar to publish a book and get it read. Now it's easy. My daughter, when she was 8 or 10, was putting up videos. Hi, puppy.
He says, you're done. Stop.
So anyway, but let's consider this, in education, when we don't have context, we lose opportunity for our students to learn. So it's not about what you're teaching, it's the context inside that teaching is happening, the way it's happening, the content can be virtually meaningless without something. For instance, if I give you, I say, oh, French fries is from France. Incorrect, right? French fries is not from France. That's a piece of information. Well, whoop-de-doo. Well, if we were eating French fries and you say, these things are not from France, that gives you a little bit more meaning. And if we're in France and we're talking about French fries, and we're talking in French, well, now you have a little bit of different bit of information in which to have the conversation. And then what if you're eating French fries while you're in France, speaking in French, right? And eating pommes frites over there? You know, these things aren't from here. They're from the United States. You know, all of a sudden the context, all of a sudden the content is given more meaning because of the context. All right, so it's critical. Without it, there can only be cursory understanding or imitation at best. So if somebody's speaking in a foreign language that I don't understand, I still hear most of the sounds. And so I could copy them and say, I just made something up. Right? And I could almost repeat myself. I could repeat them. Well, that has no understanding because I'm just imitating the noises. Right? So the only way children learn language is having these conversations in context. You could play a CD of somebody speaking, Russian all day, but there's no individual, relationship to the child in conversation. So hearing all that, it's like playing CDs isn't meaningful without some kind of context. Music CDs even. I mean, you can't have an orchestra in your living room every night, so CDs are valuable, but anyway. I just want to keep stirring the pot tonight, and we're going to get into the meat and potatoes more next week. So let's look at how context affects learning. Context relative to teaching music. So what's the broader context inside which your content was chosen? We touched on it earlier already. Is it because of your methods classes? Is it because of administration? Is it because of a state mandated curriculum? Is it because? Or is it your own choice? Or is it you and your department chair? Or are you the department chair? And then you get to pick. What is the broader context for delivery of your content? How do you go about explaining or providing better context, for your students to understand? Are we? And then there's all the technical considerations that we have to endure right now. The being online or being in hybrid models or being where there's half the children are there on one day and half the children are in your class and other, and then you switch or whatever each day. It's a little bit of a disruption for us. But I want to boil things down to where we're really looking at deep inside again and like what, there's a lot of noise. But what's at the heart and soul of your choices? Well, let's look at it in terms of what content is. And it's really any kind of information that can inspire, educate, inform, persuade, motivate, convince, and I've done this in my younger teaching days more than ever, or certainly more than now. It's like instill fear. If you don't learn this, I'm calling home. I'm going to call your parents. So any kind of information that can do, obviously, any of these kinds of things. So let's consider what the musical content, or what musical context provides for music content. It's your turn now. Class participation time. Name some elements.
Rhythm.
Rhythm. Beautiful. Another one.
Harmony.
Harmony. Excellent.
Sound.
Sound. Well, yeah, any sound is music. Has to be sound, yeah. I think it's a context inside which we put these contents in.
Tempo.
Tempo. More. What's one of the most important elements of music?
Form.
The form, timbre.
Timbre.
The texture.
More important.
The beat.
Okay.
Expression.
Expression. That's a good one.
Melody.
There you go. That's the one I think is like.
One we can't do right now.
All right. Melody. What's melody made up of? Has to have the tonal element, right? Nobody said pitches, tones. Rhythm, somebody said. Harmony, somebody said. Did anybody say style? They said expression. These are just a few, right? Dynamics is inside of the rhythm or inside of expression. Timbre,
Articulations.
tempo. There's more. Everything. There's nothing invalid here, right? But let's consider this melody. Lovely, right? Is there any context to that?
No.
Is that your ringtone?
That's my random fingers. Does that make sense? Why? Well, melody doesn't occur without some kind of tonal context and some rhythm context, right? Harmony needs tonal context. Style and dynamics, timbre, the things on the right side, probably more culturally specific or stylistically, style specific. Like, what is a forte in Berlioz different from a forte with Bach? Timbre in West Africa and the sub-Saharan countries, they prefer the buzzy sounds, right? So timbre could be considered inside of contexts too. So a forte is not a forte. Depends on the on the stylistic context. Tempo, what's moderato, 300 years ago versus moderato, in the 1900s. Let's consider it real quickly, tonal content and context. Melodies are made up of tones and rhythms. Tones need a place to end. Resting tone. Do people teach resting tone anymore? So let's just take
Yeah.
Can I end there? Can I end there? You should all be yelling at me. Can I end there?
Not and be satisfied.
No. Not be satisfied. Thank you. That's a great answer, by the way. No, it can't end there. That's where I end. No. So tones need a place to end. And where it ends is, how I wonder what you... And the kids just lose their minds, right? How I wonder what you... No, how I wonder what you... Ew. The kids can't stand it. How I wonder what you... Why is that one the best one? Well, it's a resting tone. That's like, and that that's enough to provide context for a child not knowing anything. In fact, 2.5-year-olds can tell me, no, I can't end there. Yes, I can't end there. They get better at it by the time, many of them get better at it by the time they're 3 and 4. But some have trouble at 5, 6, 7 years old to tell me they can't end there. And that they can end there. Now, is it the quality of the sound that you can't end there? I say, yeah, you can end there. Let's do it this way. Now you are ending there. It's not the quality of the sound. It's not that it's a A7, by the way. I don't know why I'm in this key. Before we couldn't end there, now we can. What changed? And everybody should be yelling, context. So, what does this mean? Somebody, Terry's like, nanny nanny boo boo. Why can't it mean that? What I wish I could talk tonight, was what meaning you were putting, what context you were putting this into? Was it this, perhaps? And why did you assume that that was the right one? Or I don't know if there was right or wrong, because I didn't put any context around it. Whatever context you put it into was the correct context. What if this is... That's an entirely different context for, isn't it? And if you were, and what if you put it in this context? It's just a different context. It's a dominant context instead of a tonic. So when you understand all these sounds in your ear, these resting tones, you know, right? We have minor, the law, and we have another law that doesn't have dominant, has that instead. So context can change. The more contexts children are led to understand, the better they're going to understand others. So the better you understand minor gives meaning to major. The more you understand, right, Dorian or Mixolydian or Phrygian and all that gives you more context to understand the others. You understand more resting tones. All right, that's a lot of time to spend on tonal context. I'll do real quick with rhythm. This is how I teach it to 4-year-olds and they get it. 5-year-olds. It's just there's big beats and little beats. And I don't show them like this. But that's duple meter. It's just moving in twos. The big lines are the big beats. Ba, ba, and the bottom, ba, 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 ba. So you could consider those 2/8, or sorry, yeah, let's just call it 2/8 notes and 4/16. Or you could call it 2/4, more likely, and 4/8. Could be cut time, and those are 2/2 and 4/4. But still, it's duple meter. Can you see me all right? You see on this side we have one beat, and on this side we have the other. So we need context for rhythm, understanding. Triple meter, ba 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 ba. That's the context in the second. And then what's this? Ba ba ba. I'm sorry. Ba 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 ba. Just a combination of the two, but the big beats are still the same size, aren't they? Ba 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 ba. I wrote a song because there aren't very many songs like this. Sometimes people call this hemiola, but you can hear this song. And by learning a song that goes between the duple and the triple sound, I call it combined meter. It combines the two meters and keeping the big beat the same size gives meaning to the other two. So anyway, here's the song. I hope you like it. I eat ketchup on ice cream, yummy yum, do you like it like me? If you eat pickles on pizza, yummy yum, won't you please share some with me? Mom likes whipped cream on hot dogs, yummy yum, Dad likes mustard on pie. I eat ketchup on ice cream, yummy yum, won't you please give it a try? So not only is it moving in twos and threes with the big beat staying the same size, but it also is what? Is anybody hearing fa as the resting tone? And one of the things I like to do to mess with my children's understanding of context is like, hey, let's do Twinkle Twinkle, but end in ketchup on ice cream's resting tone. Let me start again. So that's ketchup on ice cream's resting tone. Let's do the resting tone for ketchup on ice cream, but put it to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Wow. And the kids go like either ooh or like wow. They immediately can hear the different context. And then there's the easy way to teach 5/8 and 7/8, and that's what I discovered when I just told them the big beats are not the same size, kids. That's all. And again, the more contexts they understand for rhythms, the better they'll understand duple, the better they'll understand triple, the better they'll understand duple and triple combined. And of course, you can make any variation of these things together, but that's all there is in the world right there. There is nothing else. So if you teach those few contexts for rhythms, the kind of content that you put in can be limitless. I don't need those letters. That was for a different presentation. How are we doing on time here? We're good. Are there questions so far? Let me pull out of this and look at faces. All right. We'll go back to this movie. I have three movies I'd like for you to see to rattle your cage a little bit. But before I go any further, any comments, questions? I'm sorry for my nerves and my speaking and all of that, but I hope
You're fine.
the content is coming across.
I think you could make an argument that giving different contexts also teaches much more than just music, teaches understanding of differences among people and things like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And if that's one of your, heart and soul components of your curriculum, I include that. It's, I don't know that I have any particularly, the kids kind of either bring it up. The oldest I have now are in their early teens. And so they're more likely to have, when they're engaged, likely to have some thoughts about some of that. But when I do encounter questions of differences between and among children or families, or I like to address them, but I don't have a set A, B, C, D way to do that. But yeah, I think that we lack a little bit of that, Mary, and I'm glad you thought of it.
I was wondering, with pre-service teachers, like doing their student teaching, what are some practical ways you include these concepts, to have that the context is really important, not just the content, but the context.
Yeah, can you ask the question again?
Yeah, I'm just not sure how you would apply this to a teacher, a pre-service music teacher.
Might not be any different than with anybody. Unless they lacked experiences of other cultures, I would ask people to, get a good repertoire of music from other cultures.
That's a good idea.
And to get a good listening experience, so they have a musical understanding in their bodies just for themselves, that they're able to model at least some of the types of music elements that might be different. It's one thing if you just put on a video of, here's some children from a different culture, than if the children are learning a song from that culture. And then from where are they learning it? Just from you? Or are they also watching other children from that culture? Are they modeling off of the children from that culture so that they're able to imitate it and eventually bring some more meaning to it? And then you translate the lyrics. And you say, oh, this is about a hunting trip, or this is about, a painting ritual, or take that French fries analogy. How many layers of context can you put around, we're studying a song from Africa. It's kind of like how I was taught music theory in college. Learn the names and the dates and memorize the music. It's kind of painful. I grew up loving classical music. I played it on my radio from the time I was a 5 or 6 year old kid. And that's all I had on my record player, except for Spike Jones. I don't know if anybody knows Spike. Paul Smile. But I had Spike Jones. I hated my brother's music. I didn't like Yes or Rush. I learned to appreciate it later, and I think it's great stuff. But eventually I became a jazz fiend in college. But I hadn't had enough experiences listening to develop a vocabulary of, understanding. And then if I'm teaching something about swing, well, swing is not the same in the 40s as it is now. And it's certainly quite different than it was in the teens and 20s. And it's different, between New Orleans and Chicago and St. Louis. And then when it got to New York, Coltrane, some people said he didn't swing. But while I'm speaking to you, it's like, well, I could go through and, play lots of music from all those eras. It's like, what made those people that great? Or pick your favorite. I'm a huge Joni Mitchell fan. She embodies true artist to me. My dad I grew up in a house where my dad loved George Zell and the Chicago Symphony because of the brass. And I enjoyed watching Seiji Ozawa and the Boston Symphony. And I got to my first concert was Eugene Ormandy conducting the Philadelphia Orchestra, A Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra. And I think my next concert was Maurice Andre. And I was disappointed it wasn't, I don't know if you know that he's just the most sweetest sounding trumpet ever. And could play every style. And it's just impeccable. And his artistry is just magnificent. It's like all those experiences gives you artistic understanding in a context of embodying a musician and sharing your understanding, sharing your talents, sharing your expression, and then going beyond the musical elements that we've listed and the many more that we didn't. Considering what Mary said, let's also embrace the differences among cultures. They're just extraordinarily valid reasons to be doing what we're doing. Look at us. We're teachers persevering through this horrible time. And the reason it's horrible is just unexpected and we don't want it. Well, we can't change what we've got. But we can look at, the context inside of which we're teaching, the big pandemic and blah, blah, blah. We have to be online, blah, blah, blah. Those things we can't change, but we can look at the context inside which we are teaching our content and broaden that. I think this is the main point of what I wanted to get at. And then next week, I want to talk about the content choices that I've made and why I'm developing a new method that kind of expands on a theory that's been around for 40 or 50 years that I don't think has been well received in general. Some people are open and some people haven't been, but I've developed, Debbie, a new wing of music learning theory, harmonic learning sequence. So harmonic learning sequence is this yes-no that I've already teased you with. No, yes, no, yes. Mary had a little lamb. No, she didn't. Yes, she did. London Bridge is falling down. No, it's not. Yes, it is. The itsy bitsy spider. Down came the rain and no, yes. And the itsy bitsy spider fleece is white as snow. What? London Bridge is falling down, fleece is white as snow. Wait, what's happening here? Itsy bitsy spider, my fair lady. What's going on? Why am I mixing all those up? Well, it's because they all go yes, 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 no. And when you get tired of hearing this, yes, no, yes, that sticks out like a sore thumb. Uh-oh, what do we have? We've got something new. It's not no, it's not yes. Here's no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. Raise your hand when you hear uh-oh. And the kids can do that at 4 years old. When did I learn tonic dominant, subdominant? Well, I was in a high school theory class a year early, and so I had 2 years of theory before I got to college. And I knew it theoretically, but they didn't train my ears. Let me show you these videos real quick, and then I'll take a couple questions, and then it'll probably be 8 o'clock. These are very short. Let me start by sharing my screen, right? So yes, no, and uh-oh. And this boy here, what do I need? I need to play. This boy here, this is his first day with me.
Stop singing it!
All right, shh.
Uh-oh.
Three and a half years old.
Listen, this, yes. What's this?
No.
What's this?
Yes.
What's this?
No. Yes. Uh-oh.
Uh-huh.
No.
You gave him the eyeball.
Yes. No. Yes. No.
I don't care.
I.
So, I don't care is the dominant of the dominant. So it's in a one-horse open sleigh, hey, jingle bells, right? Jingle all the way, in a one-horse opens the dominant of the G7, which goes to C, if you want it theoretically, but it's the dominant of this dominant. So that's I don't care. It came from I don't care if I ever get back for its root. All right, so this Eli, he's 4. And this again is, I think I started yes, no, uh-oh the week before. But this is the first time with I don't care. Listen to him sing the roots. Okay, Eli, you ready?
Yes.
That's yes.
Listen.
Uh-oh.
You sure? Yep.
Yes.
What did you say?
I don't care.
Yes.
Yes.
What is that?
I
No. What's that one?
know.
No.
I
I need just Eli, please. No. You're not listening. You're being silly.
Anyway, he gets back onto it and does well. So there's 4 chords. Yes, no, uh-oh, and I don't care. In a matter of 2 weeks and 10 minutes. By the time I have kids in 2nd grade, this is what they can do. What grade are you in?
second.
Where do you go to school?
Dr. Bundy.
In West Baltimore. Major or minor? Minor. What's this? Mixolydian. What's this one?
Major.
Re fa la.
La.
Re fa la.
Re.
Ti so. Do so la.
Re.
So it's what?
Re.
Western tone re. Do re. All right. All right. I'm gonna stop first. Oops. Oh no. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to do that, and we're gonna run out of time. In 2 minutes. I want to explain really quickly. These guys they have the fingers, so tonic is 1, dominant is 5, subdominant is 4, right? Double dominant is the 5 of 5, so 2 hands. Then there's the 6 chord. There's 2 chord, which is supertonic, double dominant, supertonic. Oh, there's the dominant of the 6 chord, which we don't have enough hands for, so they put their foot in the air. So the foot is the dominant of 6. All right, let's see how badly I messed up here. I can jump ahead. Say what it is. There it is. Foot in the dominant of La. Over major, so it's this La. La. Say what it is. This is La. What's this?
Big La.
Big La. Big La. Ray. 7 and 6.
Big Ray.
Big Ray.
La. La.
I could keep going, but we only have 2 minutes. So that's some pretty extraordinary musicianship. To be able in 2nd grade to be able to do the dominant of the supertonic, dominant of the submedian, double dominant, triple dominant. I call it triple dominant. It's like they don't win, it's a shame, for it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. Out. La, re, so, do, A7, D, G7, C. And they call it Big La. Because it could go to Little Ray or it could go to Big Ray. But anyway, this is some of the things that I've learned to pursue where the children are taking me. And it was just a natural place, given the number of contexts that they had tonally and rhythmically, that what was missing was context for them harmonically. And of course we did them in major and minor and a few functions in the other tonalities. But we've hit 8 o'clock. If anybody has burning questions, please email me at teachmusictokids@gmail.com. Otherwise, this will continue next week in the next hour. But I don't want to go over our time. And I appreciate you being with us, and hopefully we'll see you next week as well. Have a great night. Good to see you, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Eric. I definitely have ketchup on ice cream stuck in my head, actually.
I have a book of
Thanks
100
everyone
of
for
them.
joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. All right, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.